Deep within the Terran research facility on Pluto's orbital station, Commander Sarah Hayes stood before a holographic display that painted her face in shades of red. The massive alien fleet appeared as a cluster of angry dots, steadily advancing through the Kuiper Belt. 20 years of preparation, and still, it felt too soon. "How many?" she asked, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. Dr. Marcus Chen, Earth's leading xenotechnology expert, manipulated the display with practiced gestures. 372 capital ships, Commander. The energy signatures match nothing in our database. They're not even trying to hide their approach. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Of course they weren't hiding. Why would they? As far as the galaxy knew, humanity was barely past chemical rockets and radio signals. The greatest deception in human history had worked perfectly, perhaps too perfectly. "Status of Operation Echo?" she asked, turning to face the facility's cavernous command center. Dozens of officers worked at quantum-enabled stations, their movements precise and controlled. No panic, no chaos, just the quiet efficiency of a plan decades in the making. "The ESS Phantom is ready," Chen replied, pulling up schematics of humanity's masterpiece. The stealth carrier appeared as a skeletal framework on the display, its true nature hidden beneath layers of quantum camouflage. All 20 Phantom-class vessels are in position, cloaked and waiting. The Drokar won't detect them unless they literally bump into one. Sarah nodded, remembering the day humanity first detected the Drokar Imperium's scout ships 15 years ago. Instead of announcing their presence to the galaxy, Earth's leaders had made an unprecedented decision. They would hide their true technological progress, presenting themselves as a primitive species while secretly preparing for the inevitable first contact. "Signal from Deep Space Array 7, announced Lieutenant Park from her communication station. "The Drokar fleet has begun active scanning of the solar system. Their technology. It's exactly as we predicted." Sarah moved to the central platform, her uniform reflecting the soft blue light of the quantum cores that powered the facility. "Begin Phase 1. Let them see exactly what they expect to see." Across the solar system, carefully crafted sensor echoes began painting a picture of a struggling civilization. Primitive satellites, basic space stations, and simple ships moving between Earth and its few colonies. A species just beginning to reach for the stars, vulnerable and ripe for conquest, or so it would appear. "Commander," Chen said quietly, joining her at the platform. "The Phantom's crew is ready, but are you sure about this approach? We could show them our true strength immediately, avoid any potential conflict." Sarah shook her head, watching as the Drokar fleet passed Neptune's orbit. "The galaxy runs on reputation, Marcus. If we show our hand now, we'll just be another advanced civilization. But if we let them think they've caught us helpless, let them show their true intentions." She let the thought hang in the air. "Incoming transmission," Lieutenant Park announced. "The Drokar are broadcasting on all frequencies. Universal Translator is processing." The command center speakers crackled to life with a voice that seemed to resonate with artificial harmony. "Attention primitive species of Sol system. This is High Commander Vexthal of the Drokar Imperium. Your system now falls under our protection. Prepare for cultural and technological integration. Resistance will result in immediate subjugation. You have one planetary rotation to respond." Sarah straightened her uniform, a gesture that her crew recognized. It was time. "Send our prepared response. Remember, everyone, we're scared, we're confused, and we're definitely not ready for this." The message they transmitted was a masterpiece of deception. Broken translations, obvious fear, and just enough defiance to be believable. Meanwhile, the ESS Phantom and its sister ships remained invisible, their quantum drives silent, their crews watching and waiting. "High Commander Vexthal," Sarah's message began, her voice carefully modulated to show nervous respect. "I am Commander Hayes of the Earth Space Defense Force. Your arrival is unexpected. We request time to consult with our world leaders. Please understand that your presence has caused considerable concern among our people. The response was immediate and predictable. You have 6 hours. Be grateful for our mercy. As the transmission ended, Sarah allowed herself another small smile. The Drokar were following the script perfectly. Begin Operation Echo Countdown, she ordered. And send word to all Phantom-class vessels. Maintain absolute quantum silence. Let's show the galaxy why humanity chose to hide in plain sight. In the void of space, the Drokar fleet moved with calculated precision, their crystalline ships refracting the distant sunlight. They saw exactly what humanity wanted them to see: a vulnerable solar system protected by primitive technology and simple weapons. They had no way of knowing that they were surrounded by ships that could rewrite the laws of physics, or that humanity had spent decades preparing for this exact moment. The greatest trap in human history was about to be sprung, and the Drokar Imperium was walking right into it. As Sarah Hayes watched the alien fleet approach, she thought about the ancient human warriors who had learned that appearing weak when you are strong was the height of strategic mastery. In 6 hours, the galaxy would learn why humanity had chosen to hide its true nature. But for now, they would wait, invisible and silent, as thunder gathered in the void. High Commander Vexthal stood on the command deck of the Drokar flagship Eternal Dominion, his crystalline form pulsing with barely contained anticipation. The holographic displays showed Earth's pathetic defensive fleet. A handful of chemical propulsion vessels, armed with primitive nuclear weapons, arranged in what their sensors indicated was their most advanced combat formation. Most peculiar, Second Commander Ixel noted, her crystalline segments shifting in thought. Their tactical positioning seems inefficient. They're primitive, Vexthal replied dismissively. What do you expect from a species that still uses radio wave communication? He turned his attention to the planet beyond. Earth shimmered like a blue jewel, its surface dotted with the lights of civilization. Status of their defensive grid. Exactly as our initial scans indicated, the tactical officer reported. Basic satellite network, minimal orbital defenses. They've activated something they call Operation Aegis. It appears to be their last resort defensive protocol. Vexthal's crystalline structure vibrated with amusement. The humans were scrambling, just as countless other species had done when the Drokar arrived to protect them. It was almost disappointing how predictable it all was. Deep within the ESS Phantom, Commander Hayes watched the Drokar fleet's movements through quantum-encrypted feeds. Her ship's true sensors, operating on principles the Drokar couldn't detect, revealed far more than the aliens realized. Every crystalline vessel was mapped in perfect detail, their weaknesses catalogued, their command structures analyzed. They're processing our defensive preparations exactly as predicted, Dr. Chen reported, his fingers dancing across quantum interface controls that looked like primitive touchscreens to any external scan. Their tactical analysis suggests they're estimating our technological level at approximately their equivalent of the early space age. Sarah nodded, watching as their carefully choreographed show continued to unfold. The defensive fleet they positioned was real enough, older ships brought out of museums and retrofitted to look barely functional. Their crews were volunteers, each one knowing their role in the greatest deception humanity had ever attempted. Incoming transmission from the Drokar flagship, Lieutenant Park announced. They're demanding immediate surrender and submission to their protective custody. Right on schedule, Sarah murmured. Signal the defense fleet. Begin Operation Echo Phase 2. Across the solar system, humanity's visible forces began their carefully planned response. The defensive fleet fired their nuclear weapons, primitive but precisely calculated demonstrations of exactly what the Drokar expected. The alien ships easily deflected the attacks with their energy shields, their confidence growing with each successful defense. Pathetic, Vexthal declared, watching the humans' primitive weapons dissipate harmlessly against Drokar shields. Begin the subjugation protocol. Disable their primary vessels, but leave their command ship intact. I want them to witness their complete defeat. The Drokar fleet moved with practiced precision, their weapon systems powering up to deliver precisely calculated disable shots. They never noticed how each human ship's random evasive maneuvers were actually positioning the Drokar fleet exactly where Operation Echo needed them. "Commander," Dr. Chen said quietly, monitoring the quantum feeds, "the Drokar are deploying their primary subjugation array. If our analysis is correct, they're about to attempt a system-wide electromagnetic pulse to disable our primitive electronics." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Exactly as the profile suggested. Their entire species is built around the idea of technological superiority. They literally cannot conceive of a civilization choosing to appear weaker than they are. She straightened in her command chair. "Signal all Phantom-class vessels. Prepare for Phase 3 on my mark." The Drokar subjugation array activated, sending a massive electromagnetic pulse rippling through space. On Earth and the visible colonies, carefully prepared systems failed exactly as they should. Lights flickered and died, communications went dark, and the defensive fleet appeared to drift helplessly. "Total success," Ixal reported, her crystalline form glowing with satisfaction. "Their technology was even more vulnerable than we anticipated. They're completely defenseless." Vexthal moved to the center of his command deck, preparing to deliver the speech he'd given to countless other primitive species. The speech about protection, about guidance, about the benefits of submitting to Drokar wisdom. But something was nagging at his tactical sense, something about how easily it had all unfolded. In the quantum-shielded command center on Pluto, Sarah Hayes watched the Drokar fleet settle into their victory formation. Their ships formed a perfect pattern above Earth, their subjugation array positioned to maintain system-wide control. They had assumed total victory, never questioning why humanity's resistance had fallen so perfectly into their expectations. "All Phantom-class vessels report ready," Lieutenant Park announced. "Quantum fields are stable and undetected. We are in optimal position." Sarah took a deep breath, thinking of all the years of preparation, all the technological advances humanity had hidden, all for this moment. The Drokar were about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology. It was their understanding of how to use it. "Begin Phase 3, she ordered. "Let's show them why Earth species evolved to be predators." Around the Drokar fleet, space itself was about to change. The trap was set, and humanity's true nature was about to be revealed. In the void between worlds, thunder gathered once again. But this time, it wouldn't be silent. Something was wrong. High Commander Vexthal felt it in the crystalline matrices that formed his being. The subjugation of Earth had been too perfect, too precise, like a dance where your partner anticipates every step before you take it. "Analysis of human communication patterns," he demanded, his form pulsing with underlying tension. Ixal brought up the data streams, their captured transmissions flowing across the holographic displays. Standard primitive encryption, easily broken. However, she paused, her crystalline segments shifting in confusion. "There's an anomaly in their response times." "Explain." "Their communications show fear, panic, desperate resistance, all expected responses. But the timing." Ixal's form flickered with uncertainty. "It's as if they knew exactly when to send each message, as if they were anticipating our moves before we made them." Deep within the ESS Phantom, Commander Hayes watched the Drokar command ship's energy signatures shift. Their scanning patterns had changed, becoming more focused, more suspicious. "They're starting to see it," she said quietly. Dr. Chen nodded, monitoring the quantum feeds. "Their artificial intelligence systems are detecting the patterns we embedded. The question is, will they understand what they're seeing in time?" "They won't," Sarah replied with quiet confidence. The Drokar built their entire civilization on the assumption that technological advancement follows a linear path. The idea that a species might choose to hide their progress, might deliberately appear weak. She shook her head. "It's completely outside their paradigm." Across the solar system, Humanity's hidden quantum network hummed with activity. The Phantom-class vessels, still completely invisible to Drokar sensors, had maneuvered into their final positions. Each ship was a masterpiece of human ingenuity, incorporating technologies that the Drokar had deemed theoretically impossible. On the Eternal Dominion's command deck, the evidence continued to mount. "High Commander," the tactical officer called out, "we're detecting anomalies in the humans' orbital debris patterns." Vexthal moved to the tactical display, his crystalline form refracting light in patterns that indicated deep concentration. The human space junk, their abandoned satellites and rocket stages, didn't move quite right. The orbital mechanics were just slightly off, as if they're being maintained in those positions, he whispered, understanding beginning to dawn. "Scan the debris field." Full spectrum analysis. The results shook the Drokar command staff to their core. Hidden within the seemingly random pattern of space debris was a complex geometric structure. Each piece of junk was positioned with mathematical precision, forming an array that encompassed the entire solar system. "Impossible," Ixal breathed, her crystalline form pulsing with shock. The power requirements for such a network would be far beyond a primitive species, Vexthal finished. Unless, his tactical mind raced, reevaluating everything they thought they knew about humanity. Unless they wanted us to think they were primitive. In the quantum-shielded command center on Pluto, Lieutenant Park's voice carried a note of satisfaction. "They've detected the orbital array, Commander. Their scan patterns indicate increasing agitation." Sarah nodded, watching the Drokar fleet's formation subtly shift into a more defensive posture. "They're starting to understand, but they still don't grasp the full scope." "Dr. Chen, begin quantum resonance sequence." Throughout the solar system, the pieces of humanity's trap began to activate. The debris field, far from being abandoned junk, was actually a vast network of quantum-entangled nodes. Each piece was a sensor, a weapon, and a shield, all disguised as primitive space trash. On the Drokar flagship, alarms began to sound. "High Commander," the sensor officer's crystalline form was practically vibrating with panic. "The debris field, it's generating some kind of energy pattern. Nothing like we've ever seen before." Vexthal watched in growing horror as the human's true technological level began to reveal itself. The debris field wasn't just an array. It was a quantum computational matrix larger than any the Drokar had ever conceived. And it was waking up. "Launch suppression drones," he ordered, trying to regain control of the situation. "Full-spectrum electromagnetic bombardment. Shut down whatever they're activating." But the drones never launched. As the Drokar ship's launch bays opened, they discovered their control systems had been subtly altered. Every attempt to activate their weapons caused cascading failures in their ship systems. "How?" Ixal demanded, her voice carrying harmonics of fear. "How could they have accessed our systems? We never detected any intrusion." In the ESS Phantom's command center, Dr. Chen allowed himself a small smile. "The quantum resonance is stable, Commander. All Drokar systems are now operating within our predicted parameters." Sarah Hayes stood, her uniform reflecting the subtle glow of quantum fields that the Drokar were only now beginning to detect. "Open a channel to the Eternal Dominion," she ordered. "I believe it's time we had a real conversation about humanity's place in the galaxy." As the quantum array fully activated, the Drokar fleet found themselves surrounded by energy patterns that defied their understanding of physics. The humans hadn't just matched Drokar technology. They'd taken it in directions that the crystalline beings had never imagined possible. The greatest deception in human history was about to end, and the galaxy would never be the same. In the space between moments, Commander Hayes prepared to reveal just how far humanity had come, and why they had chosen to hide their light from the stars. The holographic projection of Commander Hayes appeared on the Eternal Dominion's bridge, her image crystal clear despite the Drokar's attempts to block transmission. She stood with quiet confidence, her uniform now displaying subtle patterns that the Drokar's sensors identified as quantum state indicators. technology they had believed impossible for centuries. "High Commander Vexthal," she said, her voice carrying neither triumph nor mockery, "I believe it's time we discussed the true nature of humanity's capabilities." Vexthal's crystalline form pulsed with barely contained rage and fear. "What are you?" "We are exactly what we appear to be. A young species from a death world, forced to adapt or die." Sarah's image gestured, and suddenly the bridge was filled with new holographic displays, showing the true extent of human technological development. "But we learned long ago that survival sometimes means hiding your strengths until they're needed." Throughout the solar system, humanity's quantum array continued its awakening. The debris field that had appeared to be jump transformed, pieces combining and shifting in ways that defied conventional physics. Where there had been scattered fragments, now there were pristine defensive platforms, their surfaces rippling with energy patterns that made the Drokar sensors scramble in confusion. "Impossible," Ixel whispered, watching as her tactical displays revealed more human ships appearing from what seemed to be fold spaces in reality itself. "Your species cannot have mastered quantum fold technology. The computational requirements alone are handled by our solar system-wide quantum computer network." Dr. Chen's voice joined the conversation, his own hologram appearing beside Sarah's. "The same network you dismissed as primitive satellites and space debris. We've been processing quantum calculations using the entire solar system as our computer for the past decade." On the ESS Phantom, Sarah watched the Drokar command staff's reactions through their own internal sensors, which her ships had quietly compromised hours ago. "Your invasion fleet is currently surrounded by 20 Phantom-class vessels, each capable of rewriting local spacetime to our specifications. The orbital defense grid you thought you disabled was a decoy. The real grid is only now coming online." As if to emphasize her words, the quantum array pulsed. Around the Drokar fleet, space itself seemed to crystallize, forming geometric patterns that their sensors said were simultaneously there and not there, a quantum superposition made manifest on a massive scale. "You could have revealed this technology at any time," Vexthal said, his tactical mind finally grasping the full scope of the human deception. "You could have demonstrated your power when we first arrived. Why this elaborate deception?" "Because we needed to understand your intentions," Sarah replied simply. "Humanity has learned harsh lessons about the difference between capability and wisdom. We needed to know if the Drokar Imperium approached younger species with genuine offers of peace and cooperation, or," she let the thought hang in the air, "or if we sought to dominate them through technological superiority." Vexthal finished, his crystalline form dimming with the realization. Across the Drokar fleet, systems began to respond oddly. Weapons wouldn't fire, engines refused to engage, and even their quantum communication arrays showed signs of external control. They were completely at the humans' mercy. "Your entire command and control system," Dr. Chen explained, "has been operating inside a quantum bubble of our creation since shortly after you arrived. Every order you gave, every system you activated, was permitted by our protocols. We could have shut you down at any time." In the void of space, the Phantom-class vessels finally revealed themselves, their quantum shift drives creating ripples in reality that the Drokar sensors could now perceive. Each ship was a masterpiece of human engineering, incorporating technologies that seemed to break the very laws of physics. "We are offering you a choice, High Commander," Sarah continued, her voice firm but not unkind. "The Drokar Imperium can continue its current path of technological domination, in which case humanity will be forced to demonstrate exactly how far we've advanced beyond simple quantum manipulation. Or, Vexthal asked, already knowing the answer, "or we can begin again, as equals, not as protectors and subjects, but as civilizations that might learn from each other." Sarah's hologram stepped forward, seeming to address the entire Drokar command staff. "Because while we've hidden our technological advancement, we've observed enough to know that the Drokar possess knowledge and capabilities that could benefit humanity, just as we have developments that might benefit you. The command deck of the Eternal Dominion fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans hadn't just matched Drokar technology. They'd surpassed it in ways that challenged the fundamental assumptions of the Imperium. And yet, they were offering cooperation instead of dominance. The choice, High Commander, Sarah concluded, is yours. But choose carefully. Humanity has spent decades preparing for this moment, and we are ready for either outcome. In the quantum-shielded command center of the ESS Phantom, Sarah Hayes waited for the Drokar response, knowing that this moment would determine the future course of two civilizations. The greatest deception in human history had served its purpose. Now it was time to see if wisdom would triumph over pride. 3 months after the confrontation in Earth's orbit, Commander Sarah Hayes stood in a chamber that would have been impossible just a few months ago. The new Earth Drokar Joint Development Center occupied a quantum-stabilized space station that existed simultaneously in both Earth and Drokar space, a physical manifestation of the unprecedented cooperation between the two civilizations. High Commander Vexthal's crystalline form shimmered as he entered the chamber, no longer radiating the aggressive confidence of their first meeting, but something more measured, more contemplative. "Commander Hayes," he greeted, his voice carrying harmonics of respect. "The Imperium Council has finished reviewing your latest proposal." "And?" Sarah asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. The past 3 months had fundamentally changed how the Drokar viewed not just humanity, but their own place in the galaxy. "They've accepted." Vexthal's form pulsed with what Sarah had learned to recognize as excitement. The Drokar Imperium will reorganize itself into the Galactic Cooperation Initiative. No more protective custody of developing civilizations. No more technological suppression. Through the quantum-enhanced viewing panels, Earth shimmered like a jewel, while in the overlapped space, the crystalline spires of the Drokar homeworld cast prismatic light across the chamber. Dr. Chen, working at a nearby console with a team of human and Drokar scientists, smiled at the news. "Your civilization's approach to advancement," Vexthal continued, moving to stand beside Sarah, "has forced us to confront uncomfortable truths about our own development. We thought technological superiority was everything. We never considered that true advancement might mean knowing when not to show your full capabilities." Sarah nodded, remembering the tense hours after their confrontation, when the future had balanced on a knife's edge. The Drokar had chosen wisdom over pride, accepting humanity's offer of equal partnership rather than forcing a demonstration of just how far human technology had advanced beyond their understanding. "The quantum resonance matrices are stabilizing," Dr. Chen announced, looking up from his work. "We're ready to begin the first joint experiment in cross-dimensional physics." Around them, the hybrid human-Drokar technology hummed with potential. The combination of Drokar crystalline computing and human quantum manipulation had opened doors that neither civilization had thought possible. But more importantly, it had opened minds. "We're detecting unusual quantum signatures from the galactic core," a Drokar scientist announced, her crystalline form vibrating with excitement. The patterns match those theorized in the human quantum consciousness models. "Another civilization hiding in plain sight," Sarah suggested, sharing a knowing look with Vexthal. "Perhaps we're not the only ones who learned to hide our light from the stars." The former High Commander's crystalline structure rippled with what might have been laughter. "If they are out there, they'll soon learn that the galaxy has changed. The age of technological intimidation is over. The Drokar have learned there are better ways to advance civilization." Speaking of advancement, Dr. Chen interrupted, his excitement barely contained. "The first results from our joint quantum consciousness transfer experiments are in. The human consciousness can indeed be temporarily housed in a Drokar crystalline matrix, and vice versa. Cross-species understanding at its most literal." Sarah watched as human and Drokar scientists worked side by side, their differences becoming advantages rather than barriers. The deception that had begun with Operation Echo had evolved into something far more valuable than mere technological superiority. "You never did tell me," Vexthal said quietly, "just how far human technology had actually advanced." Those ships of yours, the Phantoms, they could do more than you showed us, couldn't they? Sarah smiled mysteriously. Let's just say that humanity learned long ago that the true measure of advancement isn't in showing everything you can do. It's in knowing what you should do. In the overlapped space between worlds, human and Drokar continued their work, breaking down not just the barriers between species, but the assumptions that had limited both civilizations. The quantum array that had once been disguised as space debris now served as the backbone of a new kind of galactic communication network, one based on cooperation rather than control. New quantum signature detected. A human scientist called out. Definitely artificial, definitely trying to hide itself. Coming from the direction of the Carina Nebula. Sarah and Vexthal shared another look, this one filled with anticipation. Somewhere out there, another civilization was playing the same game humanity had mastered, hiding their true nature, waiting to see how the galaxy would evolve. Should we send them a message? Vexthal asked. Let them know they can stop hiding. No, Sarah replied, watching the mysterious signal pulse like a heartbeat across their quantum displays. They'll reveal themselves when they're ready. After all, she smiled, thinking of humanity's long game, their patient wait for the right moment to emerge onto the galactic stage. Every species must find its own path to the stars. As the Earth-Drokar Joint Development Center continued its work, the galaxy was changing in ways that neither civilization had anticipated. The age of deception was over, replaced by something far more valuable, the understanding that true power lay not in technological superiority, but in the wisdom to know how to use it. Humanity had emerged from its self-imposed shadow, bringing with them not just advanced technology, but a new way of thinking about civilization itself. And somewhere out there, other species were watching, learning, and preparing for their own moment to step into the light. The game had changed, and the galaxy would never be the same.